Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel and welcome to the first episode of answering your questions. As the subscriber count grows and grows and grows, which I can't tell you guys how grateful I am for this, I'm getting more and more questions and more comments, and I'm trying to think of a neat way to address them all. It's so hard to sit there and type away, and plus, you know, where one person has a question, probably 20 of you have the same question, if not more. So I'm going to see how this goes. We're going to be discussing mods, tools, add-ons, general flight settings, graphic settings, whatever your questions are that I feel that I can effectively answer. Okay, so anyway, I hope you guys enjoy this series, and you know, we'll be doing this probably at least once a month, given the comments time to build, more if necessary. But anyways, let's go ahead and get on with the show. Alright, so the first question on my list today is, I had someone say, can we please test the G3000 functionality on the King Air? The aircraft is acquiring the glide slope, but the glide slope diamond no longer shows up. So I am on the latest version of the G3000 from working title. I do not believe I have any mods installed for the King Air, but I'll tell you what, we'll double check that while we're here. Make sure that I want to make sure everything is correct and default, so that way you can find the same setup that I'm using. So let's see, what do I got here? Yep, I got nothing except for that thing right there. What's in here? Cockpit, beige, cream. I think these are, whoa, what did I do? Why did I load all those? That was dumb. Okay, so there's a flight model, functions lighting, and a co-pilot mod. So, and I have a ton of cockpit textures sitting on top of each other. So that's always interesting. But anyway, so ignore all of these. I clicked the whole thing by accident. So we have a flight model modification. I'll make sure to put a link to that down in the description. A functions lighting. Now I don't think that would have any relationship to the PFD. That's just going to be lights and exterior lights and internal lights. So I don't think that one thing has anything to do with the other. And then of course we have Bill over here flying with us. So the flight model, again, should not impact the PFD. This should all be in relationship to the the G3000. Now, the other catch-22 here is that I do have the GTN 750, and I believe that is also part of the mods list. So let me show you what I'm using. I download the GTN 750, and I'll show you guys that in just a second. And then, let's see here, let me find it. There it is. And let's see if the King Air is on this list. I'm willing to bet it is. There's a whole bunch of aircraft that are... Yep, there's a King Air 350i. So chances are it's using that as well, which I really like this setup. So let me walk you guys through that real quick as well, because it really is awesome. I highly recommend it. And I think the GTN 750 is the payware, and it's totally up to you guys how you want to do this. But let's see here. Oh no, I don't want to buy a brand new one. Mercy. MSFS. There we go. Yeah, this is the one. Okay, so this is it here, and there will be a link to this down in the description as well. Now, you can get the basic version, I believe, for free. The premium version is the payware, if memory serves. So if we come down here, download, yeah. So you can get that for free. Com, nav, audio pinout, transponder, map, flight plan, procedures, direct to OBS, nearest pages, waypoint. But this is primarily for the MFD. And then even if we go over to the premium version, you get traffic page, terrain, weather radar, flight plan cumulative distance, flight plan import, flight plan catalog, textual MEDAR, and VCalc, so your V descents and climbs. But I don't see anything here that would make me believe that that's impacting the PFD. So this shouldn't be required based on what I'm seeing that it's editing. So if you're missing the glide slope, I would say remove all of your mods, remove the 350i if you have one, remove the working title G3000, download the latest version of it, reinstall it, and you should have it. Because, yeah, I'm not seeing any reason to believe that that wouldn't be there based on what is showing as changed. But there it is right there. And we're on an approach ILS 26 left, or yeah, 26 left? No, sorry, 26 for Phoenix Sky Harbor. Oh, hey, cool. Okay. For Phoenix Sky Harbor, and I just did an air start. So no other flight plan necessary. I just sort of stuck myself near Phoenix and then popped in a runway. So you might try a couple of different runways and see if that's happening. And then also, of course, make sure you're switching to the VOR localizer. If you're doing FMS, if this is purple when you're landing and you're not seeing the glide slope, that makes sense to me. And I don't know if this is the case. This is just I'm trying to shoot some tips out. Because if it's in FMS, it's using GPS. So you're not using the localizer at that point. So you're not going to see a localizer diamond. Okay, so just something to think about there. It will still descend once you get close enough. It should still follow a descent path. But if you notice that your descent is a little weird, that could be a good indicator too. But the biggest thing is make sure that you're also on the localizer and that your frequency is your ILS frequency. All right, so anyway, let's move on to the next question. All right, the next question on the plate is doors on the TBM. How do you do that? Is it the default installation? No, it is not. So, oh hey, someone's got a YouTube channel. Check them out. So let me show you guys where to find this as well. So we're going to bring our web page back. Microsoft, Aircraft, TBM, and you want this. The Mixmug's TBM 930 project. This is where we get the doors. He also walks you through, guys, if you want to change the ATC call sign to TBM. Gives you the instructions step by step on where to find the files that you need to change from Dair to TBM. So it's kind of cool too, because then ATC actually addresses you correctly. So anyway, download this mod. You also get some engine performance and throttle refinement, I should say. Anyways, you guys can see a bunch of engine performance changes, throttle performance changes. You get the doors, landing gear creates more drag, so flight model adjustments. It's pretty awesome. It really is. You also get a light mod and then audible alert fixes. So it's a really, really nice installation to have. It hasn't been updated in a long time, but I haven't found a reason why it would need to. I haven't had any bugs with it. I haven't had any problems with the TBM. The TBM is probably the most flawless aircraft right now that I fly. Gives me the least amount of problems of any other plane. So again, link down in the description. This one should already be in the list that's on all of my videos right now. You should be able to see Mixmug's TBM 930 mod. So anyway, that's how you get the doors. And then when you get inside, a couple different ways to you can move your cameras freely around this cockpit because it's an open cabin. So you simply click on that handle, close the passenger door or cabin door. Make sure that you always lock your doors, right? Come up front to close the oil or the engine service door. Or actually, I think that's the baggage door. Excuse me. I'm thinking wrong aircraft. The baggage door up here. And then, again, door handle here. And lock it as well. To remove pilot and co-pilot with this mod, the little red buttons. There's one. And there's two. Okay, so anyway, that's how you get that particular mod, and highly recommend it. Makes it a lot of fun. Next question that I have is somebody is having an issue with the G3000 suite, and it says when I choose the approach and click on load, it seems to activate instead of just loading. I just put the latest version 7.3, I think. Does this happen to anyone else? I've been taking autopilot off nav and using heading mode, loading the approach, and then I have to go back into the flight plan and activate the leg I was on. Is this a bug? So let's just throw in a quick approach real quick, a quick flight plan. So I'm just gonna, again, go with something that I'm familiar with. So let's do, I'm just throwing anything here. This is Tucson. It's not where we actually are, but who cares? KLAX, enter. Then we're going to, let's see here, what do I want to do? What do I want to do? Oh, procedures. What am I doing? Let's go back. Procedures. We're going to use departure. Let's set it up for the Wildcat 3 using the Heli-Bend transition. 29er right is fine. Let's hit load. Let's go back a page, go to arrival, and let's find the Hollywood 1. Again, just working with what I'm familiar with, and the Eastwood transition. And let's see here. Let's go ahead and go load. That's perfectly fine. And let's go back and let's find our approach. ILS, from this angle, I like to use 2.5 right. And we're going to be using the C-View transition. And load. Okay, so I'm not having that issue. Now, I guess it depends on when you are, when you're loading your approach. I know, the typically correct, more accurate procedures would be to load the approach as you get designated by ATC. So if that's what you're doing and it's happening while you're loading in flight, that could be a bug. But if you're loading it in the ground like this, which I do recommend, given that there are some issues with changing flight plans in flight with, I think, all of the aircraft. Some of them, sometimes it gets a little goofy. Anyway, if you're loading it if you're preloading it and you're passing the last user waypoint, where is it? Okay, so I guess from here it would be here. Once you pass this waypoint, the approach should load automatically. It should automatically activate. So I don't know if that's maybe what you're seeing. Again, I'd have to see the speculation based on the information that I was provided. So if that's not the case, that could be, it could be a bug. I guess I'd need to know more about what was going on. But this is how I enter in my approaches, and I haven't had any issue with it. Now, I will also say that with the previous segment that I just did with the King Air 350i, it is also using Working Title's G3000 mod, and it worked fine. So if you're having an issue, I would say completely remove the G3000, start the sim, close the sim, then add a new fresh copy of the G3000 and see if the behavior remains. All right, let me know. All right, so sticking with the G3000 for a minute, the next question that was asked was, does the G3000 have holding capability? So hold at waypoint capability. And quite frankly, I'm not 100% positive. I've never actually tried. So let's go ahead and come down here. We'll just throw in a quick waypoint here. So let's go to the MFD. Let's go to flight plan and add origin. We can even say we're over Tucson, so we'll throw that in there. It's fine. And then add en route waypoint. Let's put Heli-Bend in here because we should be pretty close to it. Let's see, where are we? Maybe find one a little closer. Maybe TFD instead. Insert waypoint. Tango Foxtrot Delta. There we go. Enter. There we go. That works. And then let's click on TFD. It does not look like it. So I think the answer to that at the moment is no. But I want you guys to be very, very clear that all of this functionality didn't exist 6 months ago, 8 months ago. The sim, we're just now coming up on a year. So hold tight, keep an eye on it. I'm sure it will be. It has tons of other functionality, and I'm sure this is something that is coming down the road. Okay, the next question I got is pretty vague, but I think I know what you're getting at. Are they working on adding feet beside each waypoint so you know how high you are supposed to be? MSFS ATC sucks. I will second that. And never matches to the flight computer. So, flight computer, depending on what mods and add-ons you're using, is very likely using the correct nav data. That is the nice thing about what Microsoft Flight Simulator does do, is it automatically uploads that. If you're using something like this, like the G3000, you need to program that yourself. And what I recommend using is for the most part, there's some caveats to that too. Approaches and things like that are often loaded. But what you can do is you can use your charts. Okay, so if you're flying the G3000, for example, and I'm just going to throw something in here. I'm not going to put the flight plan in. I'm just going to give you guys an example. Let's say we're, on any star here. Okay, here's our altitude restrictions, right? So let's pretend for a second here that this waypoint here, or let's find one with an actual direct. There we go. Xylab here, we need to be at 9,000 feet, right? At 250 knots. So what we can do here is you can come here in the G3000, and that's assuming this was the correct waypoint name, you could come in there and hit enter and enter in your altitude restriction, right? And then you can use the VNAV profile, and I have a video previously, just look through the last couple of how to use VNAV in the TBM 930, but it actually works with anything that using the G3000 from working title. Okay, that's critical. But yeah, it's not uncommon that you actually have to put in your own restrictions. I think even in the A320, if you're using the Flybywire, you can add in your own altitude restrictions next to the waypoint. So I guess I would need to know more about what you're looking at. I don't know if you're referring to on the world map as far as getting Microsoft Flight Simulator ATC to give you the correct altitudes. I don't know that that works. I wouldn't know how to do it. I never ever use the Flight Simulator ATC. I think it's probably the only thing on this sim that I would genuinely call garbage. I don't like it. And that's my personal opinion, and I'm sure it's going to get there. I have no doubt in my mind. Again, I am no stranger to remembering that this sim is still an infant. Like I said, we're just now getting ready to come up on 1 year of service here. So that's still very young for a simulator of this nature. So hope to the future, right? But anyway, I hope that answers your question. All right, so next question was H135. Is this in the sim? Can it be downloaded? Yeah, absolutely. Link to this aircraft is down in the description below. This is completely free addition to Microsoft Flight Simulator. And segueing into this one here, this will also be in the link down in the description below. And this is a sound mod enhancement for it, and I highly recommend it. These are both separate installations. You do not need to mix, match, or mash up any files or folders. You simply put each of these in your community folder and let the mod do the rest. So highly recommend it. A lot of fun and completely free. Next question that I get asked a ton is, how do I move the camera around when I'm flying? So either you see me, I use my right click on the mouse, I'm just using the mouse, but when you're seeing it move nice and fluidly, chances are I'm using TrackIR, or I'm actually using my own version of it. But you can purchase TrackIR 5 for, as you can see, $149.95 US. It is very, very nice. I used TrackIR for years and years. The issue with mine is about 3 years into it, this guy right here died. And so I had the option of either building my own or shelling out another $150 for it. So with that being in mind, I decided to go this route, and I highly recommend it. TrackIR DIY. That's all you got to search in YouTube, and you will see a ton of different videos of the guys showing you guys how to make your own. And it's extremely cheap, much, much cheaper than what you'll ever spend on the Natural Point TrackIR. Not to discredit them at all. It's just, it depends on what your budget is like. As far as skill set goes, you really don't need much. I am not an electrician by any means. I've never soldered before building my own headset. And actually, to speak to that, I think I even burned up the tip on my soldering iron. But my TrackIR works. I've actually made 3 of them since then. All 3 are functional. They all have different purposes. I made one with a battery pack, one with a long USB cable that connects to a portable battery pack, and one of them just with a really long USB cable that plugs directly into the PC. You know, I just wanted to experiment and play around with things. So I highly recommend this route. I mean, this price is pretty accurate. Give or take, it depends on what supplies you already have. Again, soldering iron, things like that. But at no point are you going to come anywhere near $150 plus shipping. Okay, so highly recommend that. And then what I use with it, if you go this route, is this thing here. Just Google OpenTrack 2.3, or you can just Google OpenTrack head tracking. And let me show you guys what that comes out as. OpenTrack head tracking. There's the download. Okay, and let me turn my stupid filter off so you guys can see everything well. Okay, so this is OpenTrack. So you just come and download this, and this is the software. And I actually have, I'll see if I can find the link for it. There is a video on my channel of how I built mine. And then I also have a video on how to configure this particular software the way I do. But it's very, very simple to use, not much to it. So anyway, that's how I typically move my head around. And literally all you do is start it. Once you start it, the sim picks it up and off you go. All right, it's got some caveats, got some weird behaviors that you have to get used to. One of the hardest things I think people have adjusting to TrackIR in general is you turn your head, but your eyes need to remain obviously focused on the monitor. So that can get a little weird for people at times. 2.313, is that a new version? There is a new version. All right. Well, I'll have to keep that in mind. Anyway, that's how I use my head camera. Next question on the board here is on the Cessna Citation Longitude. Am I using the default Longitude? I am not. I am using the working title G3000 5000 suite. So make sure that you have working titles G3000 involved in there. And then also Longitude. I am using this flight model modification. But as far as the interior, the only thing that would be different that I can think of as far as your question would be is that I'm using the working titles G3000. So if you see the default G3000 suite, that's probably what the difference is. Okay. And finally, let's see here, this last question for this video is, when will this plane be released? Referring to the Corsair, my friend, it is already out. So let's go ahead and find that for you. So Milviz Corsair, FG1 Corsair for Microsoft Flight Simulator. This is where I grabbed mine from. It is $39.99. However, this is one of the few currently available payware aircraft that I absolutely believe is worth the price. It's fantastic. I love flying this plane. It's so much fun. This is my weekend warrior. When it's just me and I'm not doing videos, I do things like this. I take it up and I go find gorgeous scenery and fly around in it. It's such a fun aircraft to fly. Anyway, so this is how I get it, and then you download it. It's got an executable, in which case you can either manually select the directory, or you can have it installed directly into your community folder. So this is where that is. Again, a link for this will be down in the description below for you guys. Next question is, how do I calculate my descent? Well, that's kind of a loaded question because it depends on what we're using. If we're using anything with the working title G3000, I will be using the VNAV calculations that are available in here. Again, check my last couple of videos. You'll see one that has the TBM 930 in it that says VNAV on it. And that's how I would calculate the top of descent in any of those aircraft. The Flybywire A320 has a top of descent calculator built into it. For anything else, I'll show you. Aircraft, is it under aircraft? Tools? Give me a second, I just gotta find it. Be nice. Where did I put it? Pushback Express. Oh, there it is. Calculate your descent path. I use this guy. So what we do here is you would put in your starting altitude. So let's say we're cruising up at 36,000 feet. And I always use 10,000 feet. And this is totally up to you guys. This is where I think preference comes into play. And I use 10,000 feet, and I find my waypoint here that wants me at 10,000 feet. For example, if we're using this approach, my 10,000 foot mark would be right about here, because we need to be at 9,000 here, between 11 and 12,000 here. So right in the middle, right just about, is where I would want to be at 10,000 feet. All right, so I always use 10,000 because from there on, you're on the approach. So you have your altitude restrictions labeled in, and from there you should be slowing down at 250 knots. You should be on the approach, right? And then let's say in the TBM 930, so we're coming down, we're probably doing, well, here, let's just see what our speed is right now and get an idea. Indicated airspeed, we're sitting at 189 knots. That's definitely slow. So let's say we're descending at, I don't know, we're just gonna throw a speed out here. Let's say we're descending at 230 knots. All right, end speed at 10,000 feet, we need to be at the 250 knots, but let's just call it 230 knots all the way down because we're still under speed restriction at 230 knots. So actually, let's change it. Let's go 270 knots on the descent, and we're doing 250 knots by 10,000 feet. Winds. Positive number is a tailwind. Negative, or is that right? Positive number is a headwind. So let's say we have a 6 knot headwind on the descent. right? And you can find that, you can either enter that in or you can just sort of wing it. But so, for example, we have right now a 6 knot sort of crosswind coming off our nose here. So that would probably, I think, calculate to like 2 or 3 knots on the headwind. But anyway, I digress. Glide slope 3 degrees, most commonly used. Vertical speed, we would need to descend at 1,412 feet per minute, and our top of descent would be 85 nautical miles before our target. So I would need to descend 85 nautical miles before this point. Okay, so when I'm 85 miles away from here, that's when I start my descent at 1,412 feet per minute, descending at 270 knots, 250 knots by 10,000 feet. Okay, so this is what I use for my top of descent if there isn't anything in the sim that provides it for me. It's not always perfect, but it's pretty darn accurate. It definitely gets the job done. You need to pay attention to what your altitudes are comparing to your distance, and flying the aircraft that you're flying more and more often will get you more comfortable with, you know, how you need to adjust these particular calculations. But anyway, I hope that answered your question. And finally, actually, I do have one final question that we're going to go ahead and answer today. And this one's got quite the hit, or quite the explanation here. So, Overkill, or Mr. Overkill, excuse me, thanks for your heartfelt review. As you all may know, there are other alternatives out there. I'm not sure what we're referring to on this one. I don't remember. Some way cheaper and others more expensive. My choices were the 2 most expensive alternatives, but the Honeycomb offers... Ah, there we go. We're talking about the Honeycomb flight controls. Anyway, saves him $2,000. However, the big question here is what he's looking for. Hang on a second. Is basically he's wondering, is the flight simulator... Okay, so you all know how expensive flight training can be, even though when I learned to fly, it was $22 an hour for a Cessna 152 dual. Nowadays, about $180 an hour. Thank you once again, Mr. Overkill, and please advise me as to whether you can assert that home PC training will help before I do engage the actual flight training in terms of cost, of course. Thank you. So I think some of you, Grim, if this video catches your attention, I'd like you to answer this, but any of you real-world pilots who also fly Microsoft Flight Simulator, back me up, disagree with me, whatever it may be, so that way this gentleman gets the right answer here. My answer is going to be, it is a platform that can be used for some real-world training, and I'm going to say that mostly applies to avionics, using the systems itself, following real-world checklists, assuming that you have access to them and you downloaded the real thing. If you are taking it upon yourself to actually follow you know, airport charts and, you know, following your approach plates and things like that, if you're taking the time to correctly plot your VFR flights as you would in the real world, then yes, it gives you a ton of benefit, I believe. It is the first simulator that I feel genuinely gives you the option to fly real world VFR. And that is simply because when I look out this window right now, I am looking at Tucson, Arizona. This is my hometown. So, you know, I recognize everything that I'm looking at out here. So that's a big one to think about. But as far as the sim in its default condition, will it give you real world practice flight model behavior, things that you would expect to see in the real world? I personally would say no, but I'm also not a real world pilot, so I think that is something that maybe someone else can answer a bit better. Anyways, guys, I hope you guys enjoyed this little series. Let me know if this is something you would like me to continue. There are hundreds and hundreds of more questions available. I'm just trying to keep the video down a little bit. But anyways, I hope you guys enjoy this, and I'll see you in the next one.